The whispers of Kaalasaar. Harilal always said the road home from his fields was simple, straight, dusty, and older than the village itself. A man could walk it blindfolded and still find his way. But that night, under a moonless sky, he felt something different in the air. A heaviness, a pull. He held his lantern higher, trying to cut through the darkness pressing around him. The flame flickered wildly, as if warning him. The path should have been right ahead, but the more he walked, the more it vanished into shadows. Where is the road?" he muttered, turning in circles. The silence around him was thick, almost alive. Even the crickets had stopped singing. Harilal swallowed, taking slow steps through the tall grass. Then, from somewhere behind him, a soft whisper floated through the night. "Harilal." He froze. That voice. He knew that voice. He turned slowly and lifted the lantern. Its glow revealed the outline of a woman standing a few feet away. Her sari clung to her like she had walked through rain, droplets shining faintly on her hair. Her eyes reflected an unnatural greenish shimmer.
"Ma,"
Harilal whispered. His throat tightened. His mother had died 5 years ago. The woman stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Harilal, come home." His heart pounded. He took a step back. "Ma, how are you here?" But before she could answer, a gust of cold air blew through the field. The lantern dimmed, and as the flame struggled, Harilal saw her face shift, softly at first, like water rippling. Her features blurred, stretched, lost shape. Not rotting, not melting, just dissolving into darkness. The lantern sputtered and died. Everything turned pitch black, and in that darkness, something brushed past him. A cold, mud-smeared grip wrapped around his ankle. Before he could shout, the ground beneath him softened like wet clay. The earth pulled. The grass vanished. The soil gave way. He sank. His last scream tore through the night, echoing across the empty fields, then abruptly cut off. Only the whispering remained. By morning, the village knew Harilal was missing. His wife ran door to door, shouting his name, trembling with fear. The neighbors gathered in the courtyard as she tried to explain. "He told Ramu that he would take the shortcut near Kaalasaar swamp," one villager said. "He should have been home before midnight." Everyone fell silent. Kaalasaar. It was a place no one mentioned casually, a stretch of swampy land north of the village where shadows felt thicker and the mud had a strange, oily sheen. The elders said the swamp held memories. Echoes. Something that could mimic voices. Something older than any of them. By afternoon, a crowd formed at the edge of the swamp. Men carried sticks and lanterns. Even the village watchman joined them, tapping his lathi nervously against the ground. The first thing they noticed was the silence. Even during the day, Kaalasaar was unnervingly still. No birds. No rustling leaves. Just a vast pool of dark, sluggish water and clusters of thorny trees leaning over the edges like they were watching. "Spread out," someone whispered. "We'll search quickly." They didn't dare enter the swamp, but they searched around its border. They found Harilal's worn shoe lying near the bank. His cloth satchel snagged on a low branch. Some broken reeds. But no footprints. No signs of struggle. Nothing. One man pointed to the center of the swamp, a deep pit, dark and unmoving. "That place is cursed. My grandmother used to say bodies were buried there during the old famine." Another whispered, "Some say those souls never left." Their search didn't last long. The deeper they looked, the heavier the air felt, as if something in the swamp was watching them, waiting. By evening, hope had already begun to fade. But 3 people, Asha, Pratap, and Bhairav, refused to let it go. They gathered behind the temple at dusk, speaking in hushed voices. "We'll go tonight," Asha said firmly. "Not the entire swamp, just far enough to find signs he's alive." "Are you mad?" Pratap hissed. "No one steps near that place at night." "That's exactly why we must go," Bhairav said quietly. "If Harilal is trapped somewhere, we can't abandon him." They agreed to tell no one. When the village lamps dimmed and the houses fell silent, The three slipped out with lanterns and sticks. They headed toward Kaalasaar, hearts pounding with each step. The closer they came, the colder the air grew. Their lanterns flickered. Mist curled around them like creeping fingers. "What is this place?" Asha whispered. And then, a voice floated across the swamp. "Asha, come here, child." Asha felt her chest tighten. That was her mother's voice. But her mother had been gone for years. She gripped her lantern, staring into the shifting fog. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Yes," Bhairav breathed. "I heard someone calling me too." Pratap's eyes widened. This isn't right." The swamp whispered again. But this time, the voices weren't soft. They were everywhere, calling, pleading, crying. Asha swallowed hard. "This isn't the wind," she said. "Someone or something is trying to get our attention." And as they took one more step toward the swamp's edge, the ground vibrated softly beneath their feet, like something deep below was stirring, waiting, watching, alive. The night calls of Kaalasaar. The mist around Kaalasaar seemed to thicken as the three villagers stood frozen, listening to the shifting voices circling the swamp. Asha clutched her lantern tightly, hands trembling. Pratap looked pale, almost sick. Bhairav swallowed hard, whispering a prayer under his breath. "Let's just observe from here," Bhairav murmured. "No stepping into the mud. We stay on the dry bank." Asha nodded, but her eyes kept drifting toward the water. The surface rippled without wind, like something beneath it was brushing against the mud. "Look there," Pratap whispered suddenly. Near the center of the swamp, faint shapes flickered in the mist, like silhouettes bending and straightening, too distorted to recognize. Every few seconds, a soft splash echoed, though none of them could see what caused it. Asha stepped forward instinctively, her mother's voice still pulling at her mind. "Asha, beta, why aren't you coming?" She blinked rapidly. It sounded so real. "It wants you to believe that," Bhairav warned. "Nothing real calls at midnight from a cursed marsh." But even he couldn't mask the fear trembling in his voice. Just then, Pratap grabbed Asha's arm. "Look, footprints." They followed the prints along the bank, shallow impressions in the mud. But halfway through, the steps abruptly stopped and simply disappeared, as if the person walked into the air, Bhairav whispered. "Or was pulled up," Pratap said shakily. Asha kneeled, brushing the edge of the last footprint. It felt damp, freshly disturbed. "Harilal was here," she said quietly. "This is where we lost him." A cold breeze moved across the swamp. Their lantern flames shrank to tiny trembling dots. The fog thickened so fast it felt like a wall had risen around them. "Something's changing," Bhairav murmured. He was right. The swamp suddenly went silent. Every whisper stopped. Every ripple stilled. Asha's heartbeat thudded in her ears. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. Then, a splash. Not small like before, but heavy, deliberate. Something large had surfaced. All three stepped back at once. The lantern light flickered wildly, illuminating the water just enough to show. A dark silhouette rising slowly from the center of the swamp. It wasn't clear. It wasn't human. It looked like a tall, shapeless figure coated in mud, with something like a head and something like shoulders, but nothing defined. No face. No details. Just a presence. Asha gasped. "Do you see that? Please tell me you see that." "We see it." Bhairav's voice cracked. The figure didn't move toward them. Instead, it stood unnaturally still, like it was listening. Then, "Asha, come to me." Her mother's voice again. Clearer this time. Closer. Yet the shape hadn't moved at all. "That's not your mother," Pratap whispered urgently. "Don't listen." But Asha felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. Her legs wanted to move forward, even as her mind screamed to stay still. "Beta." The voice dripped with emotion. "With every step you take, you bring me peace." Asha's breath hitched. "My mother never said things like that," she whispered suddenly. "Not like this." The realization snapped her focus back. "I'm not going anywhere," she said firmly, and stepped back. The moment she moved away, the figure in the swamp shifted faintly, as if reacting. Pratap hissed. It noticed you. Bhairav pointed shakily at the ground. Look, the mud they stood on had begun sliding toward the swamp, inch by inch, as though pulled by an invisible current. We need to move, Bhairav yelled. They stumbled backward, lanterns swaying. The more they retreated, the faster the mud crept toward the water, forming slow, dragging patterns like hands pulling at the earth. The swamp wasn't just alive. It was reaching for them. Once they made it to firmer ground, Asha turned back and froze. The figure was gone. The swamp was perfectly still again. But in the exact spot the silhouette had stood, a faint circle of glowing green light shimmered beneath the water, like an eye opening. What is this place? Pratap whispered. Bhairav didn't answer. He stared at the glowing spot, face pale. Asha. Pratap, he finally said. I don't think the swamp takes people at random. Asha frowned. What do you mean? Harilal told me something yesterday evening, Bhairav said quietly. Before he disappeared. They both stared at him. He said he heard someone calling him, just like we did. He said it sounded like his father. Asha's stomach dropped. Voices, she whispered. It uses people's memories. Bhairav nodded grimly. It knows exactly who you miss, who you love, and it uses that to bring you closer. But why choose Harilal? Pratap asked. Bhairav looked toward the glowing circle in the swamp. Because someone or something was waiting. The swamp rippled again, faint but deliberate, as if answering his words. Asha exhaled shakily. We have to leave. Now. They hurried back toward the village, the fog curling behind them like smoke from an unseen fire. But Asha couldn't shake one thought from her mind. The swamp didn't just mimic voices. It remembered them. And now, it remembered hers. What the swamp remembers. That night, even the wind refused to move through the village. Doors stayed shut, windows locked, and every lantern burned lower than usual, as if the darkness outside had grown heavier, thicker, more aware. Asha could still hear the whisper from the swamp echoing faintly in her ears. Beta, come back. She tossed and turned, sleep impossible. Outside her window, the fog sat like a white curtain unmoving. The silence pressed against her chest. She finally sat up. She needed answers. Before dawn, she gathered the elders, Mohanji, Savitri Amma, and the priest, Bola Maharaj, in the courtyard. Bhairav and Pratap stood beside her, still shaken. We saw something at Kaalasaar, Asha said. Not a shadow, not a trick. Something was watching us. The elders exchanged troubled looks. Mohanji sighed heavily. Kaalasaar wasn't always a swamp. Long ago, it was a forest clearing, until he came. Who? Pratap asked. The old man spoke slowly, like dragging memories out of dust. A man named Bakran. A mystic who sought power beyond understanding. He lived alone near the clearing and practiced rituals no one dared speak of. They say he wanted to break the boundary between the world of the living and the lost. Bhairav tensed. And he failed. He succeeded in the wrong way, Bola Maharaj said. When the villagers turned against him, he cursed the land beneath their feet. He said the earth would remember every soul it swallowed. Every voice. Every sorrow. Asha whispered. It imitates the people we lost. Savitri Amma nodded slowly. Because their memories are the easiest for us to follow. The swamp knows the shape of grief. Pratap shuddered. So what we heard weren't spirits but echoes? Echoes given form, the priest said quietly. Kaalasaar reflects what you fear and what you miss. Asha's chest tightened. So, Harilal. Harilal heard someone he loved, Mohanji said. And he followed the sound. Asha clenched her fists. But why us? Why now? Bola Maharaj stepped closer, lowering his voice. Because you stepped near it at night. And the swamp does not forget those who listen to it. Once it knows your voice, it wants you to return. Asha swallowed. What does it want from us? That, he said, is what we must discover. That evening, the elders gathered in the temple courtyard. Asha, Bhairav, and Pratap stood in the center as Bola Maharaj placed small clay lamps around them, forming a protective circle. We won't enter the swamp again, he said. Instead, we will call to it from here. If the land remembers voices, we will let it show us what it wants. Asha's heart pounded. Call it? From here? Yes, the priest said gently. You encountered it. You must be the ones to speak. They lit the lamps. The flames flickered, creating long, trembling shadows across the courtyard. Fog crept between the stones as night deepened. Close your eyes, the priest instructed. Do not open them until I tell you, no matter what you hear. The three obeyed. Bola Maharaj began to chant softly, his voice steady and rhythmic. The air cooled instantly. A faint hum vibrated beneath their feet, as if the ground itself was listening. Then, Asha heard footsteps. Soft, slow, familiar. The voice came next. Asha, beta. She stiffened. It was her mother's voice again, gentle, warm, heartbreakingly real. She heard fabric rustle beside her, as if someone was standing inches away. Asha, why did you leave me? Her breath broke. Bhairav heard something too. Bhairav, son, I am waiting. His father's voice. But his father was alive, sleeping at home. Pratap gripped his lantern tightly as a whisper brushed his ear. Pratap, come outside. I'm right here. His sister's voice. But she lived in the next village. The priest continued chanting, louder this time, forcing the voices to distort, flicker like weak flames. The air thickened. Asha felt something cold hover near her cheek. Asha, if you look at me, I will come home. Her eyes burned. Her hands shook. Her heart begged to open her eyes. But she didn't. Suddenly, the ground beneath them pulsed like a heartbeat. The voices twisted into a deep, unified whisper. Come back to Kaalasaar. The lamps flickered violently, but didn't extinguish. Bola Maharaj finally shouted, Open your eyes. They gasped and opened them, just in time to see a shadowy outline standing at the courtyard gate. No features. No face. Just a tall, swaying figure made of smoke and darkness. It didn't move closer. It simply watched them, as if waiting. Bola Maharaj raised his staff, chanting sharply. The figure wavered, like a reflection in disturbed water, then dissolved into the fog. Silence fell. Asha trembled. It followed us. The priest nodded solemnly. You did not go back to the swamp, so the swamp came to you. A cold realization washed over them. Then, how do we stop it? Pratap whispered. Bola Maharaj looked toward the north, where the silhouette of Kaalasaar lay hidden in darkness. To stop something that remembers you, he said slowly, you must remind it that you are no longer listening. Asha swallowed. And how do we do that? The priest took a deep breath. To break its connection, you must return to Kaalasaar one final time, but not to follow its voices, to confront them. Asha felt her heartbeat echo in her ears. They hadn't escaped the swamp that night. They had only awakened it.